Hi, I'm Father Shawn. Welcome to The Ladder, and today we'll be talking about fasting. In the Gospel of St. Matthew chapters 5 through 7, we read the renowned Sermon on the Mount. We read some of Christ's most famous sayings, such as the Beatitudes, the light of the world, about loving your enemies, and a further explanation of the Ten Commandments. Some may point to Christ's explanation of the law of Moses as a reinterpretation or a doing away of the ancient law that God gave Moses. But that is a false interpretation of what Christ was doing. As Christ himself said in chapter 5, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish the law, but to fulfill them." Christ is the fulfillment of the law and the prophets. Therefore, when we get to the topic of prayer and fasting in chapter 6, Christ says something very strongly. He says, "But you, when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, so that you do not appear to men to be fasting, but to your Father who is in the secret place, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you openly." What is interesting about this statement is that it begins with when you fast, not if you fast. Fasting is an assumed practice for believers. It is not something that we can choose to do if we feel like it. Instead, it is something that is expected of us as Christians in the Holy Church of Christ. And when we do fast, it is important that we do not do it so that others may see us and think that we are pious, or that so that we may grow in pride and boast about our spirituality. In fact, by doing that, we negate everything we try to accomplish by fasting from certain foods and drink. So why or how do we fast? In the West, most of us have this idea that fasting is giving up something that we like, but that actually kind of misses the mark. The purpose of fasting is not to sacrifice something. Instead, by fasting, we hope to learn discipline, to gain control of the things that we can control in our lives, but often allowed to control us. Food is a huge part of our lives. So many of us schedule our entire day around our meals. Many of us fall into gluttony and eat more than is good for us. We should be reminded of the common proverb, "Do we eat to live or live to eat?" As a result, fasting is given to us as a tool and weapon in order to overcome the attacks of the evil one, so that we may be more focused on Christ. We see that Moses fasted 40 days and 40 nights before he climbed Mount Sinai. And we also see that Elijah fasted 40 days and 40 nights. But the greatest example of all is Christ himself, fasting for 40 days and 40 nights before Satan tempted him, so that he was ready for anything the evil one threw at him. In the prayers of the Great and Holy Fast, there is a constant reference to the importance of fasting. In the Monday evening prayers of the Great Fast, we see the verse, "Through fasting and prayer, you have taught your church to conquer Satan, who fights always against her." This verse shows that Christ showed us how to fast, and through the weapon he gave us, we can now use that to our advantage. There are countless phrases about the importance of fasting in our holy prayers, and through all of it, two themes become evident. One, fasting is a weapon which we use to overcome the attacks of Satan and thus become holy. And two, if you fast but forget to love your neighbor, then your fast has no meaning before Christ. In all things we do, we must do it with love. This is something that Christ alludes to in Matthew 6, and something St. Paul speaks about in 1 Corinthians. All things must be done in the love of Christ, or it means nothing before the Lord. As the Wednesday Lilio prayers of the Great Fast point out, "Do not have hate in your heart when you are fasting, lest the foul smell from your fasting reaches the king." In the Orthodox Church, we have 5 major fasts. 25 days for the Nativity fast in preparation of the birth of Christ. The 3-day Nineveh fast, which is a preparation for the Great and Holy Fast, as well as a reminder of Jesus' 3 days in the tomb. The 50 days for the Great and Holy Fast, as we journey toward the resurrection. The 13 days Apostles' fast, and the 15-day fast for the dormition of the Mother of God. In addition to that, we fast on Wednesdays and Fridays throughout the entire year, with the exception of the 50 days after the resurrection. On Wednesdays, we remember the betrayal of the Lord, and it's also the day that we commemorate the Holy Mother of God. And on Fridays, we remember the death and crucifixion of our Lord. When you add up all those days, we spend a little bit more than half the year fasting. This only shows the utmost importance fasting has in our lives. Finally, some guidelines for fasting. Generally, fasting in the West Syriac tradition means that we do not eat anything until the 6th or 9th hour prayers. And when we do eat, it should be a small meal that sustains us for the entire day. In terms of what we can eat, in our tradition we abstain from all animal products when we fast. Meat, fish, seafood, milk, eggs, etc. In short, when we fast, we should be vegan. In addition, we are expected to abstain from all alcoholic drink during fasting periods. As the Church does in all things, all these things should be done in moderation. The point is not to show how much you can fast or how extreme you can be. Also, you should never ever do something that can harm you physically. This is why the Church in her wisdom allows those who are chronically ill, pregnant and nursing women, and young children to be exempted from these expectations. But ultimately, your fasting rule should be determined through prayer and in consultation with your spiritual father. Christ, in His infinite wisdom, through the Holy Church, gives us the tools necessary to overcome the evil one so that we may become more like Him, the one who died and rose from the dead for our sake. May God give us the strength and desire necessary to fast and pray more seriously so that we are able to control our passions and focus on Him alone, who is the true source of life. Remember to like, subscribe, and comment below on future topics that you would like us to cover.